Hello, and welcome to the BinSense mobile app training video, presented by Clues Management. This video is here to help walk you through the setup of your BinSense monitoring system and provide basic troubleshooting assistance. If you still require assistance, you can call our customer support and training team anytime. Upon installation of the new system, you will receive a transfer of ownership email, which will walk you through the initial account setup and password creation. The username for your account should default to your email address. If you forget your username or password, you can use the Forgot My Username and Forgot My Password buttons on the login page of the app, and you will receive an email with instructions to change the credentials and log in. After your first login, it is recommended you go to the Settings section on the bottom right to ensure the account information is correct, as well as ensure there is at least one phone number in the Notifications section. If no phone numbers or email addresses are listed in the Notifications section, then no alerts will be sent to inform of bin conditions. The Preferences sections can be used to adjust the app settings to suit your needs. You can change your username in the Account Settings section and change your password in the Preferences section. The BinSense system requires an annual subscription, which can be paid in the Billing and Payment section. When payment is due, you will receive a pop-up that informs of the amount due and allows you to input your credit card information into the third-party payment system and enable access to your system. When you log in, your default landing page will be the storage view in grid mode. This grid mode shows the bins in your yard as a card, where you can see information such as the bin name, commodity, maximum temperature and moisture values, bushels of grain in the bin, and trends. Each card will also have a banner that indicates the status of the bin: gray meaning unmonitored or empty, green meaning that the grain is within parameters, yellow meaning that the grain is nearing parameters, and red indicating the grain is outside of your parameters. A yellow banner with red border indicates some sort of monitoring problem, such as no cable readings or a remote not reporting to the master unit. If you see bins that have a yellow banner with red border, please call our customer support team and we can arrange for on-site service or help you to troubleshoot and solve this issue. Along the top, there is also the option to look at your bins from the list view. This view mode would allow you to see the bin name, highest temperature, and commodity, as well as the same banner coloring scheme as previously mentioned, so you can more quickly scroll through to check the status of your bins at a glance. At the bottom of this screen is the legend to indicate what the banner colors mean, in case you need a reference. The third option for the yard view is the map view, which allows you to see an overlay of the bin locations in your yard and their status. The bin circles will be filled with green, yellow, or red to indicate the status of the grain relative to your parameters. The bin circles will also be filled based on how much grain is in the bin, relative to the number of sensors covered. When you click on the bin circle, you will be able to see the bin status similar to what was shown on the grid view, as well as a quick look at the status of the sensors. By clicking on the bin card in grid view, the bin name in list view, or this pop-up in map view will all take you to the bin view page. This is where you can see more details about the bin and the sensors inside. The bin will show the grain level with the green to red gradient coloring, which helps identify any hot spots in the grain. These color gradients will be relative to your settings for each bin. You can see below the bin the commodity, bushels, and the option to input a manual moisture value. This manual moisture value is for inventory and tracking purposes only, and does not change the monitoring function of the system. If you have moisture cables in your bin, then this button is not available, and the moisture values will be displayed on the sensors above. Below this is a graph to indicate the temperature, moisture, and grain level of the bin over a period of 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month. You can also use the Custom Date Range option to look at any historical readings. When looking at this graph, it is reporting the highest temperature or moisture values of covered sensors in the bin. If you were to click on an individual sensor inside the bin, Then a graph pop-up appears that will show you the temperature of that one sensor for the time period selected. These graphs can also be shown in 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, or custom ranges. Along the top is the Settings tab, where you can set the parameters for monitoring the grain in your bin. You can change the bin, name, and commodity from here. The next section is the temperature thresholds, where you can set your high threshold for the bin. If the temperature of the grain nears this setting, the bin will show the sensors in yellow, and if it exceeds it, you will get a text alert, and the sensors will show in red. You can also utilize the low threshold setting if you want to be alerted for temperatures below a certain point, but for the most part, we recommend you leave this blank to prevent excessive alerts. Our recommendation is that the high threshold be set at 30 degrees Celsius during harvest time, and at 20 degrees after harvest has completed and you have had a chance to cool the grain. The next most important setting is the weekly rise notifications. This setting is used to inform of warming events in your bins. If a sensor is detecting grain is heating, but not yet reached the threshold setting, then you will be informed. This is valuable to help prevent heating events before they become too extreme. We recommend that this setting be left at the default 2 degrees Celsius. If you freeze your grain down in the winter, then turning the Send Alerts Below Freezing setting to off may help reduce alerts in the springtime. If this setting is set to On, then the system will alert for warming events below 0 degrees Celsius, such as grain naturally warming in the spring. Turning this to Off will help reduce false alerts. The auto level function is also very useful for automatically detecting the grain level by comparing the performance of each sensor to ambient temperature. If a sensor is trending with ambient temperature, then this indicates that it is uncovered, and the system will ignore this sensor. Sensors that are insulated by grain will maintain a consistent temperature throughout the day, and the BinSense system will use this comparison to determine which sensors are covered with grain and will be monitored. If you have moisture cables in the bins and notice that the reported values are slightly off of what you have tested, you can input an offset value, which will adjust the reported values to align with your readings. The Notes section along the top allows you to input any supplemental information about the bin and allow it to be saved to the cloud. Other users in your operation will be able to see these notes and essentially takes the information that you write on the Dryer Shack whiteboard and allows you to keep it in a central location and easy to access. Along the bottom, you can click on the Inventory page, which will show the inventory and storage for individual yards or all yards combined, if you have multiple yards. You can change the yard view to be individual yards, or all combined with the drop-down button along the top. If you find your bin capacities are incorrect, you can change the bushel volume by going to the list view of the storage page and swiping to the left on a bin and clicking on the pencil icon. This will bring up the bin details section where you can change the bin name, dimensions, and bushel capacity. After you have confirmed the correct specifications for the bins, you can click on the Next button and continue to the end. Please ensure you do not make any changes on the second, third, or fourth pages, as these changes pertain to the wireless hardware on the bins. And altering these settings can cause the remotes to become unassociated and disconnect from the master unit. The Bulk Changes section can be used to make changes to multiple bins at a time. You can select as many bins as you would like to apply bulk settings changes to, such as your canola bins, or to all bins in the yard. If you notice that you are receiving a large number of alerts, especially for bins that you know are empty, the first place to look is in the Settings page, and ensure the bin has the auto grain level turned on, and the system will automatically mute the sensors that have no grain covering them. Alternatively, you can set your commodity type to Empty for bins that are emptied, and the system will no longer monitor that bin until a commodity is set again. If you have a bin that is sending weekly rise in temperature alerts that has grain in it, but the grain appears to be within parameters, then it is likely that the bottom sensor is being affected by ambient temperature. This is common in bins that have aeration, especially hopper bins with rockets. The ambient air can come through the fan opening and affect the bottom sensors. If this is the case, then you can address this by going to the bin that is creating the alerts and select the bottom sensor. This will bring up a graph indicating the sensor's reported temperatures over the past week. You can click on the ambient overlay, and it will show what the ambient temperatures have been for the same period. If the sensor is showing to trend the same rate as the ambient temperature, but the sensors above are insulated and not affected by the ambient temperature, you can select the Disable This Sensor option, which will prevent that one sensor from sending alerts. You can choose to disable the sensor for 1 month, 6 months, or indefinitely. We would recommend against disabling indefinitely to ensure that the sensor is active for next harvest. Once a sensor is disabled, it will have a black slash through it on the bin view. If you are a user with the BinSense remote fan control add-on, you will see a fan icon shown beside your bin, and the addition of the fan setting tab along the top. This feature is available for individuals that have the remote fan controllers installed, and allows them to turn the fans on and off from their app. This function is useful for remote yards away from the main site. In the fan setting tab, you can set your fans to run for a set number of hours, with a maximum of 72 hours. The next level of monitoring from this is the BinSense Plus automation system. This system incorporates a weather station and plenum sensors, along with the fan controllers, to automatically turn fans on and off based on your parameters. It will also show the Fans Settings tab and the fan icon beside the bin view. The Settings tab will have additional capabilities under the automation settings, which allows you to operate under temperature or moisture control. In both of these methods of control, the system will compare grain and ambient conditions in an attempt to cool or dry the grain to your target temperature and moisture values. In both cases, you also need to instruct the system to the appropriate conditions to operate in. When looking at the automation status section, you will see whether the automation system is actively running or waiting for ambient conditions to be within your range. Under the Advanced Settings section, you can provide input for the minimum allowed ambient temperature, as well as the ambient equivalent moisture content range, also known as EMC. The EMC is used to instruct the system to not run the fans if the air outside would condition the grain to be too dry or too moist for your desired outcome. Setting a wider range of EMC and minimum allowed temperature will influence the graph below. That shows the acceptable fan operation range based on your settings. The plenum rise temperature is used to compare the ambient temperature to the temperature in the plenum of the fan. A 2.5 degrees setting means that the system will operate only if the air moving through the plenum does not increase by more than 2.5 degrees above ambient. This temperature difference occurs due to a fan that is in a different location in the yard than the weather station, compression of air into the plenum, and passing by the fan motor. A higher plenum rise temperature will allow for greater variability in the operating conditions. The graph below the settings shows the acceptable fan operation range, with an icon indicating the current ambient conditions. If you wish to manually run your fans, you can select the Fans Settings tab along the top, turn the automation control off, and operate the fans with the same function as the remote fan controls. To turn automation back on, return to the Settings tab and set the automation control to On. We hope that this video has been informative and helped you to understand the functionality of your BinSense monitoring system. Should you have any questions or require further training, please don't hesitate to reach out to our customer support and training team at any time.